just flipped on bricks. They're aligned with the US and EU. And this is an opinion that I'm formulating on the fact that Brazil treasury companies are making news that for the amount of Bitcoin they're accumulating, this is more aligned with the United States. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to Coinbase, excuse me, for this bull run. Now they worked with the U.S. regulators, well, New York State regulators, to allow New York State residents to actually stake cryptocurrency on their centralized exchange, because prior to, if you guess, a few days ago, we weren't allowed to. I'm a New York State resident. I wasn't allowed to stake in a centralized exchange. I can always find a way, obviously, to stake outside, but the average person is not going to buy crypto, Ethereum or Solana on, for the first time ever, and go find a decentralized exchange where to stake cryptocurrency. So shout out to them. But anyway, back to Brazil. Brazil, in addition to the fact that they have more and more interest from private companies in their country buying Bitcoin and establishing these these Bitcoin trusts for long-term storage, kind of like Michael Saylor's doing. They themselves are also ahead of the United States. If you all notice, the past week or so, last Friday, we basically went past the Litecoin ETF approval date. Tomorrow is the Solana ETF approval date. It looks like the SEC's closed, but a lot of these ETFs, they already exist in Brazil. I remember the XRP ETF it's existed since I believe it was earlier this year, March. And we've been waiting for so long in the United States. And Brazil's not a small country. Keep in mind that Brazil's population, I think, is the fourth or fifth largest in the world. The US being the third. India's number one now, China's number two, and the US is 3. So the US and Europe through the MiCA regulations, the US through the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, etc. Although that looks like it's being a little bit delayed, according to Eleanor Torre from Crypto in America. Despite that, Brazil has had the ETFs and the regulatory clarity for a while now. So they're more aligned with the US and Europe, which are going after the crypto markets and making sure that there's a way that their citizens, private citizens, how you doing, Privet, Ruski? There's a way that their citizens can actually, by the way, don't forget to subscribe and everything. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so you get the notifications, and share it. Sharing is caring, and it's free. So back to what I was saying. Russia too, by the way. Russia's also becoming more and more pro-crypto. They're allowing their high net worth citizens to invest in crypto. So anyway, this is about Brazil and the United States. So Brazil and obviously Russia are breaking rank with the BRICS nations. China is the head of the BRICS nations. They have the development bank in Beijing, I believe, or Shanghai, that rivals the World Bank in the United States. So they're at odds with the United States. They want to move those countries to their spheres of influence. I've heard reports that China's actually selling Bitcoin and crypto to buy more and more gold. They're taking the route of precious metals, of physical gold, whereas obviously Brazil and Russia, but more so Brazil, they're really focusing on making sure that their citizens can get into cryptocurrency, and their government at a national level encourages companies, private sector companies, to establish treasuries. And they're still working on their Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Bill, which I think is going to get through. They see the future. And again, the future's with the West. I don't want to get too political, but also we have to understand, I lived in China for many years, that Brazil is a very religious country. So is Russia. Steve Bannon talked about this. Countries like that are more aligned with the United States, right? Farmers in the U.S., let's just say people in the countryside in the U.S., people in the countryside in Brazil, people in the countryside in Russia have a lot more in common with people with, let's say, Russian farmers or countryside people, or Brazil having in common with China. Because we share an European history. I'm obviously Dominican American. I'm mixed, but my parents are from the Dominican Republic. It's an European country too. We all share a European shared heritage. They shout outs for Trump for signing the Declaration of Columbus Day. It is Columbus Day. I grew up in an era when it was Columbus Day. Not this indigenous meeting, whatever bullshit that the libs try to, I didn't say Democrat Republican, the libs try to push on us. But there's more shared heritage in the Western sense between our three countries, especially Brazil and the United States. We're both in the Western Hemisphere, both very Catholic. A lot of Brazilians live here. They feel like it's home here. Same thing, Americans go to Brazil. I know somebody that was a descendant of Americans, and he felt at home there. His father was from the United States, I believe. He had a few ancestors on the mother's side that were also from the United States. you don't feel that homeliness vibe in China. It is what it is. Like, no matter how long you're there, if you speak Chinese, they'll never respect you as a Chinese person. You're always gonna be a Laowai. You're always gonna be like a foreigner. Let's say you're born there, you speak the language fluently, you have Chinese citizenship somehow. You're always gonna be not one of them. Brazil, the U.S., we have that openness, and again, because of that, I believe we're both open to cryptocurrency and new technologies of the future, which I think are amazing for our country. So again, the United States is focused on crypto adoption, both at the state levels, federal level, and we're encouraging companies like Michael Saylor to adopt Michael Saylor's strategy. We're also seeing the same thing in Brazil and Russia as well. So with that being said, I'm gonna shout out for the day. I just want to say to everybody, shout outs and upwards and onwards. No, remember, before I go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. It takes a few seconds to share. And also comment. If you watch the video afterwards, feel free to comment on this video, because when we share ideas and opinions, that's how we all get smarter together. And it's gonna be a wild ride. Upwards and